we can try and build these new models, but if we don't involve the community, we'll never get there in the end, right? That's become crystal clear with all of our experiences throughout the world.
Because Bitcoin is such a complex tool requiring multidisciplinary learning, so we come with this arrogance and this enthusiasm, and we believe that we're going to bring Bitcoin adoption in a minute.
Is that, when I speak of being strategic as Bitcoiners, what we identified is there's already an existing network of tourist towns called magical towns, Pueblos magicos.
I grew up as a little child in the rural Mexico, in the Nahuatl culture. Latin America is you and your faith, and your children will suffer the consequences of you being a single mother.
So Daniel is joining us from Mexico, from Mérida, Yucatan. Thank you so much for joining the roundtable. I have to say that I have actually discovered you through your mom, Mercedes, in a podcast by John Vallis, fabulous interview, where I discovered the work of your mom, who used to be a development worker, a high-level public health specialist, specialized in women health, and she's
Marxist, right?
And Marxist in her early days, and finally through your intervention and I guess long discussion, she finally realized the value of Bitcoin, and the two of you decide to give much of your life energy to develop some project with the community in Mérida. Can you give us a brief overview of this project before we let your mom describe part of it through a video?
Sure. It's quite extensive by necessity. So we've been unraveling and pulling the string out of everything that the project should encompass, because originally we were relocating back from Europe after living most of our lives abroad. And then, as most people that enter this world of kind of citadels and self-sufficiency, we're initially doing it out of fear, right? We're running away from all of these horrible changes in the world, and we're hoping to instill a new vision. But then that brings a completely different type of responsibility, and there are many approaches to do that. So what we've been building in Mexico, I can say, has been developing out of the necessity. It's almost like a selfish approach, in the sense that we can try and build these new models, but if we don't involve the community, we'll never get there in the end, right? That's become crystal clear with all of our experiences throughout the world and in development and in other countries. It's a key part of what we're trying to do, right? So we really view it as part of it's really bringing value to the community. That's the only thing we can hope to build. So that's, you and I obviously have had plenty of discussions on kind of the current status in the Bitcoin community and how they see the introduction of Bitcoin into the actual communities. And that's a very long conversation, because it's a very nuanced approach that needs to encompass so much, to the point where we consider we're in our research stage. We don't know what we're doing, in the sense that we're just engaging with the communities. We're trying to provide like a very broad support, which we will. So I'll explain very briefly. So because we're trying to be self-sufficient in the middle of the jungle, the only way for us to guarantee what our goal is, if the community, if the adjacent community is self-sufficient as well. So we strategically had to pick a point in the Yucatan where there is already a lot of work that's been done before us, and we're really trying to bring the financial education and the value and the benefits of Bitcoin in exchange for all of their local knowledge and everything that they're able to do. So from their end, for instance, their hands are tied in terms of their access to international markets, like the quality of the things they produce. So we've had to provide quite a broad approach in terms of making investments ourselves, setting up like a cultural house slash shop front in the capital, in the city of Merida, where we'll be able to showcase a lot of their products to the broader international Bitcoin community. And then vice versa, like it's the only way to do things, right? So that's the way we're providing value to them, and they will provide the value of all their local knowledge and listening to us and really starting from square one in terms of what this new technology can bring.
Yeah, that's it. We Bitcoiners discover Bitcoin and build the conviction that this is a solution, this is hope, this is something that can help restore some sort of stability in a world that is really in turmoil, and the crisis that we are seeing one after the others are at least partly the results of a defective monetary order, which is being highly challenged at the moment. So we have this conviction, we embrace it with much enthusiasm, and we believe that it can benefit the people. And here there's the risk, and we've discussed it many times, that we fall in the same trap as all good doers who are well-intentioned people who are pretty sure that they're bringing the good gospel. You know, that I've been in this work of development, and we are basically skilled people, well-intentioned people trying to do their best. There's a lot of mistakes that have been made in the past decades in development and that are still being made. And we Bitcoiners, sometimes we are a bit arrogant and we believe that we understand it all because Bitcoin is such a complex tool requiring multidisciplinary learning that we know everything about everything. So we come with this arrogance and this enthusiasm, and we believe that we're going to bring Bitcoin adoption in a minute, without really considering people's reality. And sometimes we hit a wall, and it's better that we have this conversation first. I'm going to play this excerpt from a great video that you've produced that is available on YouTube. And in this small excerpt, we discover your mom. She couldn't make it today, but she'll be with us in next episodes. Have a look at this wonderful excerpt that will allow us to understand the perspective that women can have on an opportunity such as Bitcoin.
Una preguntita, ¿usted ha pensado en mandar la miel a otras partes del mundo?
Me gustaría, porque la verdad, esta miel es miel que da muy poquita a las abejitas y esta miel medicinal. Me gustaría también que llegaran a saber, a probar de mi miel hasta en lugares lejanos. Yo creo que con esto que ustedes están haciendo, creo que nosotros nos van a ver hasta allá muy lejos y así van conociendo las propiedades de la miel de melipona y gracias a eso estamos conociendo varias personas.
My name is Mercedes, and I was born in Mexico City, but I have been the last almost 40 years, I've been working throughout the world in over 50 countries, in different regions like African region, Southeast Asia, Latin America, of course. And all the work was related to women's lives, and my area of work is health. So I was mainly involved in protecting and promoting women's health. They are the foundation of the family, and if they are not healthy, the family can collapse. The impact of a woman being ill or dying for the family is huge, especially in the population I was working. It was only the most vulnerable population. Women were raised to protect other people's life. Biologically, we are designed to protect the children. So that means that in the health services, you can see women arrive at a very late stage because they don't know how to take care of themselves. Women tend to change even their lifestyle, like diabetes. When the women have to support the husband because he has diabetes, she's very concerned about changing the whole diet of the family, hers included. I grew up as a little child in the rural Mexico in the Nahuatl culture. I, as a child, was going to the market without money because my grandmother could exchange eggs for something, for instance, calc for preparing the tortillas when boiling the corn. So all the childhood that I had, it was money was absent. I never saw money. It's very recently that as a society we are encountering this being mediated by the financial world to get what we need for subsistence. Having said that, the complexity of the economy became such that all the indigenous community are left marginal to the benefit of being financially illiterate. And having said that, women are also very industrious. Here in Yucatan, women are the ones who are supporting their families. If you go and see statistics, again, all throughout Latin America, you will see that female-headed households are increasing, that single mothers are increasing. We don't have the luxury as in Scandinavia, because women in Scandinavia were telling me, oh yeah, but we have a lot of single mothers. Yeah, but the state is the provider. And even you are paid by the number of children that you are having. Latin America is you and your faith, and your children will suffer the consequences of you being a single mother. Single mothers have the problem that have double or triple shifts. They have their formal work, and also they have to find a way to cover all the expenses of their children, their education on their own, and they have to arrive after working hard and cleaning their house and prepare food and blah, blah, blah. So there's no time for leisure, non-existing time for leisure, rest, so those women are faced constantly with a workload. Different workload, but they don't have the freedom like women in the northern countries to have leisure or to relax. So then these statistics are increasing despite all this technological boom. The vulnerable women don't benefit from that because they produce things that are valuable, commodities that are sellable, but they don't get the benefit of the fiat money. And on top of that, they suffer all what we are familiar with fiat money suffers. That, for instance, inflation. Yes, they know because they go to the market to buy their things for the food to be prepared at home, and they can see that the same kilo of beans, the same kilo of rice, the same kilo of whatever they want to buy, corn, has constantly increased the price. And that means that the concept to inflation is very clear to them. They might don't know the term, but they know what it is about. They are familiar with the economic jargon, I would say in indirect way. They have to practice opportunity costs. Why? Because they have to choose between what they are going to buy because the money is scarce, and they have to think previously if they buy one item or other. That doesn't mean they recognize the term opportunity cost, but they are very familiar with all the economic dynamics that we have. And within these changes, what I noticed within the technological advancement, this opportunity with Bitcoin of bringing women to this new way of perceiving money, new way of using money. They have a frame where they can grasp what is Bitcoin.
Wonderful video, really. And that's a video that's been filmed how long ago? Was it 2 years ago, 1 year and a half ago?
I think it's about a year ago, but so mainly I think the story, because I think you hit the nail on the head before you played the video on what you were discussing. Well, the stage that we're at, right, in terms of Bitcoin adoption and Bitcoin education, and the hubris and the excitement that's there. And I think when you and I, talk about like the problems we see in terms of really, I think we're at a crossroads now as Bitcoiners, right, in terms of the next stage of evolution for what we can actually do, because it would be absurd if we were to make all the same mistakes that have been made in development already, like you're saying, all the big donors, because the intentions are noble, right? But it's like there's some very, very clear lessons. So for instance, my mom was giving an example before, I think in the John Vallis interview, whereby like they would go through 5 years of research before rolling out an initiative, right? Whereas as Bitcoiners right now, we just want to show numbers. We want to show orange pilled heads that you can count. And for us, what we've seen is that it's such a delicate thing, because especially in the global South, right, people are living on the edge. So it's a very, I consider it highly irresponsible that you just come up to someone and you promise all of the benefits of Bitcoin without, because it's not even ill-intended, but it's like, if you don't speak the language, you're not able to provide the message that highlights the dangers and the subtleties that we saw this a lot in El Salvador, right? Like that the people weren't educated to the point where what they needed to know, and everybody was just caught in the excitement of the last bull market. They all went in at the top and lost their savings, right? So we really think that that's something that's very overlooked in terms of, because I understand, right? I understand that we want to show progress. We want to show people, we want to film people accepting sats and report. So for instance, I'd say we can't even call ourselves a circular economy, right? It's a very long-term project. We have the main capital in Merida, where we're establishing, like, say, the cultural center / embassy, and then the actual town that's already a highly productive town, because you can't just go willy-nilly and try and introduce Bitcoin. Well, I mean, you can, right? But this is what this is the message we're trying to this is the debate and the what we want to start discussing. Should we, right? Because as Bitcoiners, we are at a disadvantage. We don't have the resources of the state, and we need to be strategic about where we focus adoption, right? There has to be a strategic connection with why that plays and why it justifies all of our time and energy, right? Because from what we see is, like, we all agree that Bitcoin is the most valuable element that we know yet. So it's artificial the way we're creating that demand, right? Because it's almost like Bitcoin Disneyland. Everyone wants to go and spend some sats and show some Instagram photos that sats are being accepted there. But we always try to highlight the difference between acceptance and adoption, right? So acceptance is very easy, especially in the global South. We're very good at telling foreigners what they want to hear, right? If we can make a quick buck on it, of course we'll dance to the tune and do the whole thing. But at the end of the day, we don't know what we're being left with. So we identified that as a big pitfall that people can fall into, and we want actual adoption, right? And that takes a lot longer than we expected, because it it involves establishing genuine connections with the people before you start to talk about anything financial.
What comes to mind is that most Bitcoiners kind of, you say, pride themselves for being integrous, or at least much more integrous, or at least integrity is a value that's cherished within the community. Most Bitcoiners, through their journey, the journey that's taken them to recognize Bitcoin as the most valuable crypto project at the moment. In this journey, they've visited the crypto casino, and they've experienced this excitation and this, this greed and all those emotions that won't really lead you very far. And we've convinced ourselves that this is just money. This is really a strong project, and we want to be super integrous. Now, what's happening is that we are over enthusiastic about sharing the good news to the world. And at the moment of indeed, I guess, engaging in such adoption project, we forget about all the difficulty it took us to come up to that realization. It's a lot of education. For most of us, it's hundreds, if not thousands of hours before we settle to the idea that, okay, just relax, be patient, save in Bitcoin, accept the volatility, and if you cannot, just don't go. What's been your experience in terms of accepting that maybe your initial approach was not appropriate for the circumstance of the people, and what appears to be a more reasonable path forward to basically get them by small doable steps to learn and adopt Bitcoin?
So at the moment, so we've had to pivot in a way, and we are quite fortunate that we have, we've created a strong partnership with IBEX, which is a big like technological provider to the space, and they understand the same vision, right? So, for instance, we're trying to provide the tangible benefits of Bitcoin as a payment rails technology. So we're offboarding them. Well, we haven't started. When I'm saying this is all getting set up in the background. So we maybe have a handful of people that want to join the pilot program, and we'll start accepting Bitcoin like that. But for the most part, they're going to be being off-ramped into pesos immediately, right? So we're looking at maybe 1 or 2 years of just promoting Bitcoin as a payment technology that is obviously better than the current system, with better fees than credit card companies. And then we will focus on, like I was mentioning before, on seeing the quality of the products and produce that these communities are manufacturing and making, and seeing if they're on a par to be able to bring them into the competing in the big city and competing at an international stage. So at the moment, we're super careful in terms of selling the future benefits of Bitcoin because, for instance, we do run into this problem that sometimes other foreigners come and they just want to orange peel someone. They want to put an accepted Bitcoin sticker on the premise, and it's triple the amount of work for us, because then we have to go back to the person, see if they understood anything, see if they really know what they're getting themselves into, see if they know the dangers and how that can actually impact their business. And for the most part, you find out that it's a very superficial introduction that's been received, and they have no idea what they're getting themselves into. So we really see, and obviously by word of mouth. So if we do our job and really onboard a handful of people, but that really get it, right, where we've spent the time really getting them to know, and they've seen so for instance, we've never pushed anyone into accepting Bitcoin. We've been mainly supporting their business, tipping in Bitcoin, and then naturally over a period of almost over a year, during the last pump, one of the guys is like, whoa, look at all these tips. That's a significant amount. So for the first time, he himself said oh, can you actually pay me in Bitcoin this time? But it's it's a hand-holding, very slow process that has to come from them. And even then, like, we wouldn't feel comfortable constantly, because then we've had the drop again, right? So maybe he took that payment at the top, and now it's dropped another 10%. So it's just like a genuine human interaction of, as we're discovering this new technology, but really like sharing the reality of it. That's really what's key, right? Because even as Bitcoiners, we like to hodl through the dips and all of that, but it requires psychologically like a very, very specific frame of mind that if you
and
don't...
perhaps that's useful to clarify a little bit for the non-Bitcoiner audience, that Bitcoin is not only an asset, it's not only a denomination, an asset, a currency, if you will, that you can hold, that you can self-custody. It's also a network, and basically holding the assets, saving your value, your money, your wealth in Bitcoin until some challenges, because the volatility of the thing is such that that it's going to be extremely stressful to see both a massive appreciation of the wealth you've put in Bitcoin, and then a sudden decline, super abrupt, and it's going to take a cycle or two, and Bitcoin cycles are 4 years long. It's going to take a cycle or two before you start relaxing about it. And as you say, it's psychologically demanding. But you can also use Bitcoin, not the asset, but the network, which is, as you called it, a rail of payment, which is just an alternative to the SWIFT, the SEPA, the whatever networks with many intermediaries that we're using so far to make a transfer payment, right?
And on that front already, there's huge benefits that we could be selling to people.
And in this case, you're not sending Bitcoin. You can send a peso through the Bitcoin rail,
exactly,
and with very little fee, instantaneous. And it's happening already with Strike. And so the thing you're talking about involving IBEX is going to be a solution comparable to that of Strike, isn't it?
Yes. So for instance, for us, we're really focusing on like the very tangible things, say for expats or even for remittances, which are they're huge markets, but they're very slow because the learning curve is significant, right? Even though people know it's something completely new, but once we start to get the message out that you can save a lot of money. So then there's so many little different avenues. So for instance, expats, there's a lot of expats living in Mexico, and especially in this part of Mexico. So we're banking on them being like, part of, so we can't call it a circular economy because it will require external injection of cash for like probably a good number of years. But at least we're not focusing on donations, because when you're really looking for donations for your project, then that puts you in a completely in a much more vulnerable spot in terms of being able to be something that sustains itself. But at least there's a very genuine need of expats to lower their fees between what they're getting charged on the exchange rate versus in addition to the ATM fees and all of those things that add up. And then on this side, the credit card companies are charging them, like almost double what we'd be able to do. So we're able to save money on both sides of those transactions. So already that for Mexico in general it's a pretty big incentive for people to start looking at a new technology very seriously. The other thing I wanted to say is that, when I speak of being strategic as Bitcoiners, what we identified is there's already an existing network of tourist towns called magical towns, Pueblos magicos, in the whole of Mexico. And it's a very successful tourist initiative. So when we started looking at where are we going to try and establish a Bitcoin pilot program, why don't we tap into this existing network? Because if we are successful in one of those towns, it's already a network that communicates within itself. It competes within itself. So we're hoping to leverage that natural, competition that exists within those towns, and that's why, we say, like, let's be strategic Bitcoiners. It's like when we put out like an international call of action and say, come and support this, we'd like to present the whole reasoning as to why we're trying to get our foot in the door in this very specific locale with this very specific approach. So and this goes back, we've had lots of chats with Scott, which it's a good, because there is a need for that, right? Because like you're saying, every man and their dog is calling themselves Bitcoin circular economy. And it would be lovely if all of these things were genuine grassroots organic movements. It was going to spread like wildfire. But because we are against such a formidable enemy and we don't have endless resources, like we would need to, as a Bitcoin community internationally, go where will we get our most bang for our sats in terms of actual adoption, right? And that's, I don't proclaim to have the answers, but that's a debate that we need to have. What does it mean to have actual adoption? Because that's a very different thing. Even in El Salvador, I went with the hope, right, to be inspired to that extent, and the reality is very different. And in terms of the actual population, what benefits is the population? Is it connected, right? So maybe you've graduated 1,000 people into your diplomas, but like going back to those people and seeing what they actually understood, where they stand with Bitcoin. Like this is all information that does not exist in the Bitcoin ecosystem, that somebody somewhere has to start collecting, because we need to start gauging the reality of where we are exactly, right? Because like we said, I mean, it's so tempting for me. It's tempting to go and show a successful project based on Instagram reports and trinkets being exchanged, right? Yeah. But in terms of it, because you know how long it took for you to understand Bitcoin, right? I know how long it took for me. We can't expect these people that have much bigger economic challenges to get it much quicker, right? So that's really what I can't highlight it enough in terms of the entire Bitcoin community, right? Because even the products that are out there, like to this day, there is no Bitcoin wallet that I can put to use in the communities where we're going, right? I have all the talks with all the different developers, and we can eventually create something, but I think it says a lot, right? That no one has actually sat down, done the interviews, done like with both, with the people promoting it and the people, the new users, the new potential users. So
yeah. I mean, I'm really looking forward. I think we're soon going to wrap up and conclude this long episode. But I'm really looking forward to seeing this second segment of the program, this peer-to-peer learning space, to allow for these kinds of conversation where we say what's happening in the real life. This truthful conversation about the challenges and sometimes the excessive ambition that we come with, and our difficulty to recognize early enough that we are on the wrong path. My experience in development is that changing behavior takes a long time. Introducing toilets, improve sanitation system, improve water supply system. You would imagine that it's easy. It's very difficult. Some stuff gets adopted very quickly. I mean, the mobile wave has been a fantastic. In the case of Bitcoin, it might take longer, as you say, and I think it requires identifying within a community a few people, a strong nucleus, a core group of people who are both highly dedicated, knowledgeable, and who have a strong influence, opinion leaders, etc., and who basically commit to help the community learn at their own rate, right? Some communities are not going to be mature; they're not ready for it. Some villages may be known for being a bit more avant-gardist and embracing new things earlier than others. Well, then maybe you have to start there. But trying to roll out a whole program in a whole province in a very systematic and standardized way, even if you have a strong marketing budget, is not going to work necessarily with Bitcoin, I think. Do you want to add something before we
I mean,
close?
just on that on the last bit you said, I think so. It would help for Bitcoiners to sort of really identify the elements of Bitcoin that right now sell themselves, right? So we've identified with IBEX that just saving businesses on commission, saving expats on those things. Those things I think can be adopted very, very quickly, right? And then we're just going to focus solely on that, right? Even though as Bitcoiners we would have the ambition to go the full thing and just end the whole fiat scam and get everybody on Bitcoin. But I think there's something very pragmatic and practical to, as a community, like really going, like where are we going to focus on? Is it going to be in the global south? It's almost like, specialize a little bit as a community, because we need all the support we can get, but we also need our message to be to be broadcasting in the correct objective way. So I think, as Bitcoiners, like we're really against like credentials and all of these things. But I think in this particular case, especially in the global south, there are people like yourself or like my mom that have genuine experience, like in the field, in specific countries, that would be invaluable to many Bitcoin companies or many Bitcoin projects. And they don't see, it's one of those you don't know what you don't know situations, right? And people, that's what I think these roundtables like can bring a lot of that experience to the forefront, so that at least people know that that how far away they are from the price or the correct assessment of the situation, right? That's what I would hope like that we see a lot more in these roundtables, like people with actual experience in the field for very tangible things that we need to accomplish in the Bitcoin community, and that it can be that it can be listened to with humility and with just pragmatism. Like, let's learn from these people that have already done this in different areas. They've already rolled out successful initiatives, in developing countries, and where are blind spots as a Bitcoin community. And that alone, I think, will save us like decades of evolution in the Bitcoin space. I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Jack.
Daniel, thanks a lot. I mean, it's great to conclude this first episode with you, because it's through our conversation that I really decided to push it and try to make this project happen. I'm sure we're gonna have you on stage again with your mom, and there's a lot to say about Bitcoin initiatives in Mexico. How can people follow your work? If there's a way, I'll probably.
So I didn't put it. If you put it, it's in a citadel, INAH citadel on Twitter. That's where they can follow. See, I should have put it on that link.
Well, Daniel and everyone,
Perfect,
thank you so much for your participation in this first episode.